It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Appreciate you listening. By the way, I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can find that 6 to 10 a.m. Weekdays, East Coast time, so that's 5 to 9 Central. And you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook if you like to watch radio shows. We do air the show on YouTube and also Facebook and X 997WTN.com as well. And you can listen on all the apps as well. There is a lot going on. I haven't even gotten to this yet. Zohran Mamdani. Of course, you all know the controversy does continue with this guy. Karoline Leavitt was asked about quite possibly he could end up being, again, Zohran Mamdani. He could end up being the next mayor of New York City. And he's very controversial. In case you don't know, he is a Democrat socialist, and he is somebody who he wants to do a lot of really bad things to the city of New York, including $65 million for transgender service. This guy is as liberal as it gets, and Karoline Leavitt was asked about him yesterday.
Does President Trump want Zohran Mamdani deported?
I haven't heard him say that. I haven't heard him call for that. But certainly he does not want this individual to be elected. I was just speaking to him about it and his radical policies that will completely crush New York City, which is obviously a city that the president holds near and dear to his heart.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's so amazing? And I don't know if you folks in New York could answer this for me, but why do people hate Donald Trump so much? He built that city, or at least clearly helped build that city with all of those high rises and all the development and such. But we know what Mamdani wants to do to the city of New York. He wants to defund the police. He wants fast and free buses for folks. He wants to allow people to use whatever prison they identify with. So men, of course, will go into female prisons and probably start knocking up a bunch of female prisoners. He wants that $30 an hour minimum wage. He wants the rent freezes, and he wants city-run grocery stores. And a lot of this I spoke about last night. I don't want to repeat what I did last night, but, you know, there's a lot of things that he has done and wants to do to the city of New York that, in my opinion, will actually further destroy New York. But does he actually deserve to be deported? They call it denaturalized and deported. Listen to this.
There's this Congressman, Andy Ogles. He wants the Attorney General Bondi to explore denaturalization proceedings because he thinks Mamdani could have misrepresented or concealed material support for terrorism based on rap lyrics he wrote in 2017. Does President Trump think this is a worthwhile use of the Attorney General's time?
So I don't know if you know this. I actually just discovered this yesterday myself. But this guy Mamdani, do you know that he fancied himself a rapper? Yeah. And he wrote some lyrics. In his 2017 song titled Salam, he included lyrics that have been cited as expressing support for the Holy Land Five. Now, if you don't know who the Holy Land Five is, it's a group of folks convicted in 2008 for funneling over $12 million to Hamas, a U.S. designated terror organizations. Yeah, that's the group that killed over 1,200 Jewish folks in Israel. That's Hamas. And in 2017, this guy Mamdani pledged support for the Holy Land Five, convicted in 2008 of funneling $12 million to Hamas. Do you know what he said in the song? My love to the Holy Land Five, you better look 'em up. And free the Holy Land Five, my guys. The rap lyrics of one Zohran Mamdani And so the question is, does he deserve to be deported? See, there's a form that people that are being naturalized and they want citizenship, there's a form that they have to fill out. It's called form, 400 or something like that, N400. And so when you fill out this form, when you're asking to be naturalized and, become a legal citizen and so forth, well, they ask you questions about whether or not you have any support for terrorism. Do you ever carried out tax fraud or, these kinds of things? And it would appear that if he did not write these rap lyrics on this N400 form, well, then he lied, which means that he could be, if you want to get technical, he could be deported. He could be denaturalized and he could be deported. It's a big question, isn't it? And by the way, Andy Ogles is a guy that lives in Middle Tennessee. He is the congressman for the 5th Congressional District here in Middle Tennessee. So these 5 guys, the Holy Land 5, they were convicted on 108 counts, including providing material support for terrorism, tax fraud, money laundering. Honestly, he is professing his love to a terrorist organization. The song is described as reflecting Mamdani's experience growing up Muslim in New York. But the specific mention of the Holy Land 5 has drawn significant controversy, with some calling it an expression of support for Hamas-related figures. I mean, it sounds like he does to me.
Well, I'll let the president speak to that. I have not seen those claims, but surely if they are true, it's something that should be investigated.
Right. Look at when he filled out the N400. If he filled out the N400 and he had rapped these and wrote these lyrics down, and then after that he filled out the N400, then he lied on the form. So if we want to get ticky-tacky, if we want to get technical, then he is eligible for, from what it sounds like, denaturalization and deportation. He need to be deported. So that Congressman Andy Ogles, again, 5th Congressional District, and one of the things that he said on the socials is this. This is a quote. If this communist, anti-Semitic jihadist loves the third world so much, to the point he would lie about it to immigration officials, we can arrange for his speedy delivery back to Uganda. I mean, I find it funny. He also calls him Little Muhammad. So the question is, if we want to go down this road, did he lie on that N400 form? When someone becomes a citizen, they have to be honest on these forms. They have to disclose any support for terrorist organizations. This song was from 2017. He filled out the form in 2018. So yeah, it does appear that he lied about showing support for a group of men convicted of supporting Hamas. That congressman, by the way, Andy Ogles, he was on Newsmax to present his case.
Part of the process when you fill out the naturalization forms, which, here's a copy of one here, is you've got to disclose your activities. So like communism, anti-American activities. And so in 2018, when he was naturalized, he failed to disclose some of the things that he had been doing, one of which was joining the Democrat Socialists of America. That's a communist organization, which, quite frankly, at that time would have disqualified him from becoming a United States citizen. So what we're encouraging to do is the Justice Department to look into the timing of his joining that organization. It would have been anti-American. It would have fit the definition of what he would have been required to disclose, and quite frankly, would have made him most likely ineligible to become a naturalized citizen.
All right, so you have the rap lyrics supporting Hamas. You also have him joining a communist organization, neither of which, by the way, he disclosed on that N400 form. So I think that Zohran Mamdani needs to start packing his flipping bags because he's going to get deported. I don't know if he's going to get deported. I don't think that he will, but I mean, I get where the congressman is going with this. Beyond all of that, another big question, what would happen if this guy was actually elected as mayor of America's biggest city. Remember, he brands himself as Donald Trump's worst nightmare. Well, Caroline Levitt was asked about that.
Could President Trump see himself working with a mayor, Mamdani, somebody who, on Meet the Press this weekend, was given 3 chances to condemn the phrase globalize the intifada, but he couldn't?
Yeah, look, the president is always willing to work with everyone. He's working with Democrats across the country, Democrat governors, and he said he'll work with people on the far left. He works with Republicans. He works with people in the middle. He wants to do what's right for America, but surely someone who holds these values and is quite literally a communist and condemns every value that makes this country great. Common sense, law and order, low taxes, working hard, and earning your keep in this country. He's against all of that, and I think the president would find it difficult to work with someone like that. If he is elected, I'm sure you'll hear more from the president on that, but we'll have to see. Hopefully the voters of New York City choose wisely.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not actually. I'm indifferent as to whether or not New York chooses wisely or chooses the right candidate, whatever. I mean, I would like Curtis Sliwa to actually win. He's like the lone conservative. He's run, I think, a number of different times. But New York, in its infinite wisdom, the good people of New York, no doubt, may actually pick this Democratic socialist, Zohran Mamdani, guy who has provable support for anti-Semitic terrorist organizations as their next mayor. Can you imagine that? And, you know, I spoke about this yesterday where it's like, okay, so you know what? In New York, if this is what you want to do, you go right on ahead. And the rest of the world, the rest of America will literally watch you burn. Like we've been watching San Francisco burn over the last several years. And by the way, real quick, the city-run grocery stores. Remember, I talked about this the last couple of nights, actually, from Fox Business. Economists and business leaders are sounding the alarms over New York City mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani and his plan to roll out city-owned grocery stores that he says will lower food prices. Here's the quote. "You don't lower grocery bills by having government-run stores," says one Ryan Bourne, a top economist at the libertarian-leaning Cato Institute think tank. And he says, no. The problem you have with government-run stores is that, number one, there's no competition. And that's a big problem. Number two, they don't know anything about running a grocery store. And so there's a lot of people that are wondering, does this guy even know what he's talking about? But here's what Ryan Bourne said. You don't lower grocery bills by having government-run stores, he says. Ryan Bourne, a top economist at the Cato Institute, telling Fox Business government-run entities have no market discipline, no need to earn profits, no need to compete, no need to serve customers efficiently. No. That leads to bloated costs, empty shelves, and zero accountability. I mean, friends, I could light you up with like probably 15 to 20 of these expert comments on this guy's desire to open city-run grocery stores in New York. EJ and Tony. I got that I interview often here in Nashville during my morning show. Another Fox News contributor. He's an economics analyst. And he says, you know, the other problem is that this guy is selling things substantially less than the private market, which is going to mean that the private market will want to go to these government-run stores as opposed to the private market. That means that it could destroy jobs in the private sector, and it could also mean a number of other things. City-run grocery stores have the potential to exacerbate food shortages in New York City. Because if you put the city-run grocery stores out and people go there, well then, you know, the places like Walmart and so forth, they're going to go away. because nobody's going there. And then all you have left is the city-run grocery stores, and they could run out of food. So no, this is not smart. Zohran Mamdani, it is not smart at all. And I was doing my research this morning on all of these different people, all of these really smart economists that are looking at what this dude wants to do and predicting that it will be an absolute train wreck. My name is Dan Mandis. It's Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Like a craft beer on a hot summer day, an important ingredient is hops. And when it comes to hop production forecast per USDA,
acres strong for harvest in 2025. We're forecasting just over 42,000 acres. It's a 6% drop from what was actually harvested last year, and it marks the fourth consecutive year of declining acreage. It would represent the fewest acres since 2014.
But Lance Honig of the National Agricultural Statistics Service clarifies the year-over-year decrease in 2025 is less than in previous years. And measurement of hop production applies only to the major growing states, all in the Pacific Northwest.
What's interesting about the craft industry is that does lead to a lot more regional or local type of growth of hops, because that's part of the niche, or it is the using product that's grown locally. And we certainly do see hops grown outside the Pacific Northwest.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE. Hey, you want to hear something really funny? So I'm a big Scott Jennings fan over there on CNN, and they were talking about this Mamdani, the guy Zohran Mamdani, who might very well be the next mayor for the city of New York. And remember one of the things that we said yesterday was that he said that he wants to specifically target white neighborhoods for higher property taxes. He literally said white neighborhoods. So Scott Jennings, of course, his whole life is trying to deal with these moronic liberals over there on CNN, who they are actually denying that is what Mamdani wants to do. Listen to this.
I got to leave it there. Nobody's going to be able to walk Manhattan after he defunds the New York City Police Department, Marie. I wouldn't advise walking Manhattan after he gets rid of the police force.
Just to jump in, Mamdani. Just to jump in. Hold on. Mamdani advocated for defunding NYPD in 2020. He's since said his goal is reform, not defunding.
Exactly.
And then also just
you guys are doing that again. It's the old Harris playbook. Just one more thing. Point of order. He just said he didn't want to tax white people specifically, just higher income neighborhoods that do happen to be majority white. He literally wrote it in his statement, Omar. He literally wrote it down. Are you letting him get off the hook?
White? No, I am saying that he said that, but not on the basis of race specifically. I'm not saying he didn't say that. He did say that,
okay,
but not on the basis of race specifically. Scott.
Yeah, that's very funny. I mean, that is so just, I don't even know. I mean, it's just gaslighting. It's what it is. I mean, it's like Scott Jennings said, where it is like Kamala Harris, where Kamala Harris was, she was very leftist indeed. But then when she's running for president, all of a sudden, well, that's not what I meant, or no, I didn't say that, or no. It was taken out of context. Yeah, that's the ticket. They're doing the same thing with this Mamdani. So we'll have to see if the American media is able to protect this guy like they tried to do with Kamala Harris.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Appreciate you listening, and I guess this Vote-a-rama thing, I guess it is still going on. They are 19 hours in. I mean, it is crazy. And now, you know what they're saying? This is from thehill.com. They're basically saying that this thing is at a standstill. They say focus turns to Lisa Murkowski as Vote-a-rama stretches to 19 hours. The Senate is more than 19 hours into a Vote-a-rama on the massive GOP policy legislation, dubbed the Big Beautiful Bill, and votes seem to be moving slightly faster after proceeding glacially for much of the day. See, I'm trying to figure out, this was posted, this morning at 4:38 a.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 Central. So I don't know. This is like an hour old, but it just sounds like this Vote-a-rama thing is still going. Republican leaders were forced to stall as they awaited critical rulings from the parliamentarian. At the same time, Senate Majority Leader John Thune was working to nail down the support of several Republican senators, including at least 2 moderates and 3 conservatives who haven't yet said if they will vote for the final package. Now, earlier, I was telling you about some of the interviews that I've done on the Big Beautiful Bill. It was a couple of senators. I had a lot of audio for you on them last night. And this morning, I'm going to play some audio for you of my actual congressman here in Middle Tennessee. John Rose is a congressman. He is also running, by the way, for governor. But one of the things that he says is that, the big controversy is not necessarily about cuts. It's about the growth. Well, I guess it's about everything. Because the Democrats are saying, they're going to cut Medicaid, right? And the Republicans are saying, no, we're actually not. We're just imposing work requirements and, booting off illegal aliens and so forth. But again, my congressman, John Rose, he talked about how this is all about growth. Americans, we are going to make more money. And that means that we'll be paying more taxes, sales taxes, which means that we will see our economy grow.
So it is absolutely true. If you look at the overall impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill, obviously when I say the largest tax increase in American history, you could look at it the other way and say if we don't pass this, tax decrease, if we don't pass this on January 1st, we would have the largest tax increase in American history. And so the biggest feature of the One Big Beautiful Bill is that it provides certainty to Americans, particularly small businesses and businesses all across this country, about what their tax future is going to be.
Right. And, the thing about all of this is that everybody's got an opinion, right? Everybody's got an opinion. Left, right, middle, CBO, Wall Street Journal, you name it, everybody's got an opinion. Critics say that it'll increase the deficit by nearly $3.3 trillion over the next decade. The president and his supporters say that it'll give the people more of their tax money back, and that will, in turn, as you just heard, increase consumer spending and increase tax revenue, and that will grow the economy. And, when we look at the Democrats, and I want you to remember this, friends, when we look at the Democrats, let's not forget that this is the same group of people that once called a massive Joe Biden spending bill the Inflation Reduction Act, when it did the exact opposite. As a matter of fact, Joe Biden himself and a lot of Democrats even came back and said, we really shouldn't have called that massive spending bill the Inflation Reduction Act because it wasn't even designed to stop inflation. And it actually helped skyrocket inflation. So you know what? My give a crap over what the Democrats think about this bill, it's just not there. I don't care what they say. Do you? Now, I do care what the CBO says, but the CBO, from what I understand, and, I've had a couple of congressmen and also a couple of senators explain this to me, that the way that the CBO looks at this legislation and the price tag of the legislation is they only look at the cuts. They don't look at the overall situation. They only look at the cuts. They don't look at what the other measures will do to grow the economy. So that's number one. Number two, Congressman Rose, he continued to talk about how this will actually help businesses do what they need to do to thrive. Because when a business thrives, you know what happens when a business thrives? Yeah, you're right. They hire. They do research. They give raises. What it won't give them is uncertainty. Because that's what companies need to do to grow. They need to know where things are going. They need some economic certainty, not economic uncertainty. Remember when Donald Trump, he put out a True Social where he told the Republicans, he said, hey, panicans. Remember he called them panicans? Hey, panicans, stop panicking and stop worrying so much about cutting. Worry about more economic growth. Wall Street Journal said this, and you can find it on my X feed at Dan Mandis Show. Wall Street Journal says this, I love it. They say the bill will make the small business deduction permanent and increases it by 20%. They say, according to IRS data, since they were enacted in 2017, Donald Trump's tax cuts have helped support 2.6 million jobs, billions in GDP, and billions in annual employee compensation. So I would say to the Democrats, what? What's the problem? You want to go back to the Inflation Reduction Act? Is that what you'd like to do? No, thanks. The other thing this bill does, it does a lot for small business owners. They'll be able to invest. Once enacted, small business owners will be able to expense research and development costs. That's huge. And all of these things, you know what that ultimately means? It means that the money is coming back to us. It is coming back to the American people. It is coming back to the people who earned that money. And those small businesses, they're going to be able to hire people. They're going to be able to give people raises. They're going to be able to invest and do research and do something to help their business grow. That brings in massive amounts of money. Back to John Rose.
It generates more tax revenue. We already know that when these tax cuts, many of them that were a part of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, when they were fully implemented, they in fact did result in a faster growing U.S. economy, such that ultimately they didn't really cost anything. They paid off because the growth in tax revenue more than offset the cost. And that's what we will see happen here.
The growth in tax revenue will more than offset the cost. That is what this congressman says, and that is consistent with what other politicians have said to me as well. But let's not forget what this bill does. I mean, just, go down the line. It's going to reduce taxes by extending the Trump tax cuts from 2017, and also it increases the tax cuts even further. So if this passes, the standard deduction will now be $16,000 for single filers and $32,000 for joint filers, $24,000 for head of household. In other words, this is an opportunity to not only extend those tax cuts, but also make them better. And I think that that's huge. The other things, obviously, that you've heard of thousands of times, more than likely. No tax on tips. No tax on car loans. No tax on overtime. Child tax credits. That's a big one. Child tax credits. Immigration enforcement. Military funding increase. And cuts, of course, to Medicaid. Now, what would it do? What would the cuts be to Medicaid? Well, Republicans want to institute work requirements of 80 hours per month. folks, that's only 20 hours per week. Think you could handle that? All they're asking for is able-bodied citizens to work. That's all they're saying. If you are under 65 and you are an able-bodied adult, then you should get your butt to work. That's what you should do. And if you can work, then guess what? Then maybe you don't need to be on Medicaid. But you see how big of a deal this is. So now part of the storyline this morning, because the Republicans, the conservatives, they're trying to figure out how to get all these votes, right? They can't lose any more than 3. And if they go to 3, if they lose 3, well, then J.D. Vance can come in and he can be the tiebreaker. But they're having to make a lot of compromises. They're having to do things, the Republicans in the Senate, they're having to do things that they didn't necessarily want to do. And now they do. Now they do have to do these things. Cut this, fund that, and so forth. And so now you got all these people like John Rose, you got all these people over at the House of Representatives. They are ticked because apparently the big, beautiful bill isn't anywhere near what it was back when they sent it over to the Senate. This is the headline. House GOP fumes over Senate's mega bill. You know what they say? How did it get so much effing worse? That's what the Republicans are saying in the House of Representatives. How did the Senate shank this so incredibly far? Well, I mean, I can tell you because you have a lot of senators who are representing districts that is, it's more of a Biden district. It's more of a blue district. I mean, I'm here to tell you it is really easy. We're talking about Andy Ogles earlier. It is really easy, in my opinion, to legislate if you are a Republican or a conservative. It is so easy to just come in and say, yeah, well, you know what? Everything that I'm going to vote for, it's going to be just what Donald Trump wants me to vote for. I mean, that's easy. If you are in a hardcore Donald Trump district, then you know how you're supposed to vote. You're supposed to vote with Donald Trump. And that's the bottom line. This is interesting, though. It's an interesting article because they do talk about the battle that is going on within the Senate. Because, and I said this yesterday on my local show. If you don't know, I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And we're on all the apps and we're on YouTube and Facebook as well. So here's the thing, part of what I would say is I was asking this question yesterday. Okay, so here's the problems that the Republicans have. The problem that the Republicans have is that they still have some people in there that are just really afraid to push the envelope. And I don't know if it's that they're scared to push the envelope. I don't know if it's because they truly don't like this piece of legislation. I don't know what it is. But Donald Trump will be the first one to tell you, man, you know what? He was given a mandate. That's what he'll tell you. He was given a mandate when he won the election. And now they're trying to figure out what to do. It's going to be close. Not only is it going to be close, but I don't know if they're going to make it in the House. If they do, because you know what happens, right? I mean, do I have to explain this? So they come to an agreement in the Senate. Then it goes over to the House. It goes into a committee where they work on reconciliation. They're reconciling the two different versions, the Senate version and the Democrat version. Man, how much would you hate to be a fly on the wall for that? I would absolutely hate it. 866-90-RED-I, 866-907-3339. Dan Mandis here, Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-I on Red Eye Radio.
Radio, 866-90 Red Eye. By the way, Chick-fil-A has once again been named as America's favorite fast food chain. McDonald's has suffered a humiliating, crushing blow, a defeat now for the second year in a row. I tell you what, Chick-fil-A, which is where I may be going for breakfast, Chick-fil-A has some great, and I mean great, customer service. So it's not real surprising. Starbucks is on the list. Arby's is on the list as well for best fast food. But Chick-fil-A, once again, at number one. All right, we'll see you tomorrow right here on Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.